In my time on this planet, I've seen MMORPGs come, rise, and eventually fall into oblivion. And in a world where the MMO genre feels like it's slowly fading away, there's one game that's been quietly but steadily growing its player base: Albion Online. So that raises the question, what is Albion Online actually about? What makes it different from other MMOs? And most importantly, what is it that makes it fun? To find out, I embarked on a quest through the world of Albion. And to keep myself on track, I've set up a list of personal gameplay goals. First, I have to get a hang of the basics. Second, I want to find the main weapon I'm gonna use. I also want to join a guild, buy a house, reach IP level 1200, become a millionaire, and ultimately become a PvP god. Will I be able to achieve all of this? Let's find out and let the grind begin. Our ship, heading to the promised lands of Albion, had crashed, and so our adventure begins on a quiet beach. Yes, I actually called myself Dr. Malbion. Creativity clearly peaks at 4 AM. Followed the path inland and met the wounded crafter, who asked me to scout the area by climbing the lighthouse we were in. From the top I was able to see the wreck of our ship and the enemies blocking the way. On our way back down I was prompted to use our first ability, Sprint. The interesting thing about Albion Online is that it actually has a classless skill system, and skills are bound to the clothing you wear. Trust me, it will make sense in a bit. The wounded crafter now tasked me with gathering some wood and stone to make a sword.
I don't think that's how it works.
Anyway, after reporting back to the crafter, he rewarded me with a shield to go with my sword. And it was time to confront the bastards on the bridge. As expected from the first enemies in the game, they went down pretty fast. Apparently this made me level up some skills, so I opened my skill tree and... what is this? It's Path of Exile all over again. I skimmed a few abilities, but honestly I was pretty overwhelmed. I had no clue what I was looking at, so I just closed it. Let's just try and find the ship. Oh, that's great. Game maintenance.
1 hour later.
So this is the cove, where the tutorial continues. I first learned about the auction house, where I got my very first mount, a cute little mule, and naturally I called him Snonky. Subscribe if you know. I went out to gather more stone and wood to craft my first tools, a pickaxe and an axe. The wounded crafter, apparently named Silas, also gifted me a sickle and a skinning knife.
I'm ready to get to work now though.
Silas showed us the world map, and it turned out we were pretty close to Albion itself. And just look at this, what is it? There's an even bigger continent north of it. Our boy Silas sent us into the forest to harvest birch log from birch trees and decimate the local fox population for their rugged hides. And after turning those in, he sent us to the nearby mountain to gather copper ore and cotton fiber. Easy. He then taught us to process everything at the local workstations and gave us a little more explanation about the skill tree and learning points. I still had no idea. Finally, it was time to bash some local heretics and steal their map to continue. Here I got some better feel for the combat, and it felt kinda like League of Legends. I leveled my fighter skill to about 25% and then used my learning points to max it out. And it did start to make a bit of sense now. After getting back, I was tasked with even more resource gathering to build my very first armor set, which was a full leather set, and I built a better sword. When equipping my gear, I could now choose which skill I wanted active. You can freely swap any skills around without any cost, just for a small cooldown, and I just picked the ones that made sense to me. I also made a fire staff just to try it out, and continued my quest out of this hellhole, onto the world of Albion. I quickly found out that I didn't really like the fire staff and went back to the simplicity of the sword. After killing some more heretics, I reached the captain of the ship and spoke to the travel planner, where I can choose my starting location. The world of Albion is divided in different biomes, each with their own city and primary resources. The city of Thetford is a swamp full of cotton. Fort Sterling is in the mountains and rich with ore. Bridgewatch is a desert packed with animals for leather, and Martlock lies in the highlands with tons of stone. But I chose Forest Cross, the starting town closest to Limhurst, the main forest city. Why? Because it's a forest, and you chop wood in a forest. I'm a simple man. I see tree, I cut wood. Yes, give me your wood. And there we are, the mainland of Albion, in the town of Forest Cross. This seems like the perfect moment to talk about the sponsor of this video, which is actually Albion Online. Huge thanks to Albion for sponsoring this video. Check out the video link in the description to learn everything about the huge content update dropping the 30th of June. And download Albion Online for free by clicking my referral link. Or since it is cross-platform, grab it from the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. It's free to play. You have no excuse. Also, don't forget to tune in to the Crucible on Twitch, featuring top streamers in an epic Albion Online guild tournament. Again, thank you Albion Online for supporting this video. Back in Forest Cross, I got 3 days of premium from the quest giver. The game explained to me that premium benefits your character in all kinds of ways, but the real kicker is that you can buy premium time with in-game currency, and I actually really like that they do that. I continued into the town where the game guided me through all the crafting stations and other important locations, and then something exciting happened. I found this crazy portal and got Avalon tasked to do a dungeon for our almighty king, who even is our king. The dungeon was crawling with heretics and turned out to be a great place to hone my combat skills, and even work toward my daily key thingy bonus, which would become way more important than I at this point realized. After unaliving a few heretics, I leveled up as a Raver. It turns out that every time you level as a Reaver, you unlock more expeditions and gain damage and defense bonuses against monsters of that level tier, with us now being at Adept, which is tier 4. At this point I made it my goal to grind through all the ranks and become an Elder Reaver. Yeah, we got some grinding to do. I cleared the dungeon, slayed everything in my way until finally I reached the boss, the Deranged Overseer. Easy. I got rewarded with a bag that contained a royal sigil. It turned out that you can use those to upgrade gear, but I have no idea what to do with them at this point, so I just sold them. Still very much in tutorial mode, I picked up a skinning quest that led me through the nearby savannah, and I hunted impalas, cougars and moa birds for their skins, until I stumbled upon a single player dungeon. Why not? Apparently other players can join a single player dungeon, and I was suddenly teamed up with someone called Electrodead. It wasn't really working together though, we still had to fight over the loot, but honestly it was pretty fun. Once outside of the dungeon I continued my hunt for animal hides, and after a few more kills I claimed my daily bonus. I clicked it away cluelessly and then I saw it. Morgana's Raven. Apparently you can just earn it by playing, every single day. I am neurodivergent enough for that. So I added the Raven to my bucket list. I have 20 days to get it. Should be easy, right? In the meantime, I also learned that you level the proficiency of the gear you wear by wearing it. Which made me realize only wearing leather was going to slow me down if I ever wanted to switch later. So I picked the Scholar's Cowl for cloth XP and a bag for more friggin' backspace. I also used some of the Tomes of Insight that I've gotten from quests and I found out that they give your gear a massive XP boost. Before we go any further, let's take a quick look at the bucket list. To check any of this off, I first need to escape the starter zone and get to the city of Limhurst, where the real game begins. And to do that, I need to start climbing the skill tree. Skills in the skill tree work fairly simple. For example, use sword, level sword, unlock better sword, and sword abilities. Easy enough. Each weapon type also has its own specialization that levels separately, making you more effective with that specific weapon within its family. And this concept applies to every skill in the game. So let's get grinding. I went back into the fray to collect some hides, ran another dungeon, gathered more materials and returned to town. I sold all of my hides to finally afford some tier 3 weapons and armor. To test them out, I bought a scroll to teleport to a solo dungeon with supposedly better loot. I also grabbed a roast chicken to eat during the run. Apparently, in a different universe, KFC gives you lifesteal instead of stealing your life. The dungeon was fun and all, but it didn't really do much for my fighting skills. You see, all the zones in Albion are color-coded. These early zones are blue, fully safe. But one tier up, zones turn yellow, and players can attack you, but you don't lose any gear. Going even higher and the zones turn red and black, full loot PvP. And then there's the Roads of Avalon, which we'll get to later. But let's just say we'll need every skill point we can get to go there. I did however get enough skinning XP to put learning points into animal skinning to unlock the tier 2 skinning knife. Sweet. I decided that I wanted to do both skinning and woodcutting, so I set out to the nearby forest area of Red Lake to get some chopping done. I found some of Groot's bodies, clapped them and found out that you can harvest them for their wood. These were chestnut bros, apparently the highest tier of tree that I could farm at this moment. I kept gathering for a while and went back to town to sell the logs, but I figured they'd be probably worth more if I turned them into planks first. What I didn't know yet is that you can use focus, something you regenerate daily when you have premium, to increase crafting efficiency and actually make a profit. Which I didn't do. So yeah, I basically downgraded my wood's value with extra steps. Oh well, at least I had enough money to make a tier 4 sword. And it's time to travel to Limhurst. I traveled from Red Lake to Birch Copse and figured I'd do some more animal skinning and wood chopping along the way. And of course, another dungeon, where I got my ass handed to me. Yeah. Well, let's just head into Limhurst then. And holy mother of cows. The amount of people in here is just insane. It looks like a freaking ant farm. This game is clearly anything but dead. I was kinda overwhelmed to say the least. And I just went back to Birch Copse for some more skinning and chopping. My inventory was filling up really fast and I had to return to town constantly. Time for an upgrade. Meet Box, my packing ox. Just look at how cute he is. And he could carry so much stuff. I continued my grind and tested out a whole range of weapons. And to my surprise, I actually liked the woodcutting grind. Like, dangerously so. I don't know, it was so simple but kinda relaxing. After selling all of my gatherings, I made more than 100k coins. At this rate, I'm going to hit 1 million in no time. Or so I thought. Because in this game, everything is freaking expensive. I kept progressing, which meant constantly buying new weapons, armors and tools. I remembered that I still had some stuff stored in Forest Cross. So I used my travel planner to head back, picked everything up and returned all the way to Limhurst. Since one of my goals is joining a guild, I took a quick look at the guild finder, got overwhelmed instantly and did what I do best, procrastinate. And after that I handed in my very last quest. And now I'm on my own. To celebrate, I treated myself on some tier 4 combat gear. It sure wasn't cheap, at least for me, but it got me a little bit closer to becoming tier 8. And I'm already halfway there. Looking at the tier 8 gear in the auction house though, I'm not sure I'll ever be making it with these prices. Anyway, after doing some more lovely wood chopping and refining, I saw it. The list of achievement rewards. Apparently there's a ton of achievements in this game that give rewards. And I hadn't claimed any of them. Time to accept them all. And just look at all of those skill tomes. That's insane. Just literally hundreds of thousands of fame points just waiting to be consumed. By me. I wish I knew that before. I used up a few of them, but also kept some aside, just in case I ever wanted to power level a new weapon or a new armor. We're now just about 10 hours into the game, and we're getting pretty close to tier 4 skinning and woodcutting. Reaching this level is a real milestone, since I'll be able to gather the next tier of hides and trees, and also unlock specialized gathering gear that boosts my yield. I'm also working towards becoming a master reaver, which will help me to take on tier 6 enemies more efficiently. I'm also halfway into level 10 leather armor fighting, which will let me equip tier 5 gear. Time to get back to business. Daily dungeon time. These daily dungeons are perfect for trying out new weapons. This time I grabbed a pair of dual swords and I absolutely love those. By far my favorite weapon so far, and the one I'll be using the most in this video. Just look at me flying around the battlefield. Goal officially crossed off the list. After that I bought some heavy soldier boots to level those up a bit. Decent protection plus pretty solid sprinting abilities. I did swap out my Hellion jacket for a mercenary one. Honestly, the Hellion is way better for healing, but it's also way more expensive. And since I'm planning to get into full PvP zones, and knowing how good I am at PvP, I'd rather specialize into something cheaper. After yet another woodcutting session, I advanced enough to boost my lumberjack skill and unlock the tier 4 woodcutter axe. Up until now I could only harvest rough logs, birch, chestnut and pine. But with my new axe I could now also chop cedar logs. So time to head into a tier 5 yellow zone. You would. So these yellow zones are a bit different. You can actually get killed there by other players. You won't lose any gear, but still, it's freaking annoying. And the cedar spirits were stronger than I expected too. I was wearing the lumberjack garments. Awful skills they have, but they do give a 50% boost to woodcutting yield, which is pretty nice. Yes, more wood. I was just peacefully grinding when I stumbled across this weird thing. What is it? What? Let's go. Nothing that can go wrong here. Just casually stepping into a random portal. And it made me enter a whole new realm. And I later found out that these were the Mists. Some kind of parallel dimension to Albion. I roamed around a bit, fighting stronger, more fairy-like versions of the overworld monsters. However, I did notice the overworld had more of the resources that I actually needed, so I just dipped out of the Mists. I went back to town and didn't sell any of my goods. I just stored them for later. You'll find out soon why. I hit the market and browsed for pork pies. These give a whopping 15% increased gathering yield on top of my lumberjack garment, massively boosting my efficiency. Then I got back into it. I went back to a lower tier zone because birch logs were in high demand. And in this moment I just wanted to make a lot of money. A pork pie buff lasts for 30 minutes, so I made the most of it. I went back to town, loaded up all the wood that I stored, and went out for a long trip. Because we're hauling all of this wood to Fort Sterling, baby. Every city in Albion appears to have its own refining bonus, and Fort Sterling gives 40% to wood refining. So yeah, we're hauling our entire inventory of wood for maximum profits. So I packed up box and we went off. Arriving at Fort Sterling, me and Box headed straight to the lumber mill and refined all of our logs, turning 180k worth of wood into 260k worth of planks. We did use focus points for that, but still not bad. I did sell everything in the Fort Sterling auction house, which in hindsight was kinda dumb. Because of the boost, the supply here is very high, so the prices are probably too low. Still, I made a pretty good profit. I went back to Limhurst and ran another dungeon, where I finally got enough combat fame to become a master reaver. Sweet. After that I queued up through the looking for group system, because I really wanted to try some group content. But after waiting way too long, nothing. So I attempted a tier 5 solo dungeon and got my ass handed to me. Again. Anyway, my skill in weapons and armor had improved a lot in the meantime. My skills in armor were now around level 28, which was pretty cool. I could now finally wear tier 5 armor, which obviously I bought instantly, one step closer to tier 8 in all gear, and a few steps back from becoming a millionaire. At this point in my playthrough I had a nice little routine. Go out to chop wood and gather hides, refine the loot, and then dive into some dungeons. Sticking to this routine I made about 400k, and just I was getting close to the 1 million mark, I did it again. I bought a fancy mount. A Swift Claw for 100k. You gotta admit he looks cool, right? Totally worth it. We're just not going to talk about horses being way cheaper and doing exactly the same. At this point in the game I was suddenly out of premium time, so I had to buy a new one. I found a 30-day bundle that came with a Mist Bison mount skin that I really liked. Just look at it. Bundle had the same price as regular premium, so why not? I also got 150 gold, which I could have turned into silver. About 7k silver per gold, meaning roughly 900k in value. But for the purposes of this video, I didn't do that. But I do really like this mount skin. Never mind. Aside from that little incident, things were going pretty well. I'd finally leveled up enough to start wearing tier 6 weapon and armor, getting closer and closer to my goal of reaching tier 8. However, the progress towards the Raven wasn't really going as fast as I hoped. I was also starting to worry that I wouldn't hit the 1200 IP in time. That's basically your power level. It increases based on the gear tiers and the specializations you unlock. I was now at 900 and it was going slow. I could check one goal of my list pretty easily. Once again I opened the guild finder tool, searched for something noob friendly and found Deathless. That's a cool name, right? They did have a Discord which I joined, and apart from that I didn't really do much with the guild system yet. I still hadn't done any group content. I tried to looking for group and party finder again, but sadly couldn't find any groups that wanted me. So I looked for PvE alternatives and found out about the Roads of Avalon. It's a full loot PvP system with semi-randomized paths connected by portals and completely unmapped. Sounds cool, sounds dangerous. I'm in. I grabbed some cheap gear and entered one of the portals in the overworld. And I had no idea what was going on. I went through a portal, inside another portal, and there were glyphs everywhere, and I didn't know what any of them meant, so I was just casually exploring. Until this happened. Yeah, I kinda got ganked. Well, so much for my Avalonian adventure. Now done with the Roads of Avalon, I decided to buy my very own island. It has a building plot and you can even farm your own animals in there. Let's go! I placed the blueprint for the pasture, got myself some building materials, and my farming level was too low. Of course. So I decided to start a little carrot and bean farm to level my farming level up a bit. But now I really wanted to breed my own freaking animals. New goal added to the list. With the farming stuff out of the way, it was time for some more resource gathering. By now I'm a tier 4 skinner, which means that I can now skin bears. I also advanced to tier 5 woodcutting and unlocked the tier 5 axe. We were still in the tier 5 area of Aspenwood, but having higher gathering skills made a big difference. Where I used to make about 75k per half an hour of gathering, it was now closer to 150k. That's just crazy. All this time I had my looking for group channel open, and when I finally saw a group wanting to do a tier 6 dungeon, I jumped straight in and joined them. Finally, some group content. The tank clearly knew what he was doing. He pulled entire groups like a pro, while the mages and I did the DPS, and the healer, well, healed us. Very quickly I realized something. I was basically just there for the show. The others dealt massive damage. My only real contribution to the fight was my ultimate from my carving sword, which lowers enemy defenses. I didn't really do any damage myself. Still, I had an amazing time. The fame that I got inside of the dungeon was literally insane. It was at least 10 times more than doing solo dungeons. It was crazy. I just kept getting skill up messages. It just didn't stop. I really liked doing the dungeon, and from this point on I knew it. I wanted to become a group dungeoneer. After our group wiped and the party got disbanded, I went back into the looking for group channel and advertised myself. But nothing seemed to work. Every single time I heard, "Too low IP, not enough fame." I even tried to make a healer build. Still no invites. That really sucked. That fame XP from that one dungeon was exactly what I needed to raise my IP. And I wanted to do more dungeons really bad. Well, at least the farm was making me money. I still was a bit salty about the whole group dungeon situation and figured, since group dungeons give so freaking much fame XP, there had to be better ways getting experience than the solo dungeons I did. So I set my social anxiety aside and asked my guild for help. Someone actually responded and told me about the Outlands. Remember that huge ass freaking continent north of the map? It's filled with black zones and you can grind camps of NPCs there for a lot of money and crazy amounts of fame XP. The only catch is that it's full loot PvP. So if I die, I lose everything. He also explained to me that I'd need tier 4.1 gear to get in, which is basically tier 4 gear with one enchantment, giving me the same IP as a tier 5, but way cheaper. And this got me thinking, if 4.1 is 5, then 5.3 is like tier 8, right? Only way more affordable. Anyway, thanks to my helpful guildie, I grabbed some disposable gear, a throwaway horse, and went through the portal in Limhurst. Burning Crusade, anyone? Time to kick some giants' ass. It was insane. The mobs I killed gave 5k fame each, instead of the 100 you get in a solo dungeon. I kept leveling non-stop, it was just so damn satisfying. The very next day I logged back in and saw I was very freaking close to unlocking the Morgana's Raven. Soon you'll be mine. Thanks to all the Black Zone camp grinding, my combat skills were doing pretty well. I was close to becoming an Elder Reaver, and my armor skills were all hovering around level 45, massively contributing to my IP. I kept grinding the camps in the Outlands Black Zones and I was having an absolute blast. Especially when I got ridiculously lucky. I opened a treasure chest and there was a freaking 100k robe in it. It was all fun and games until the inevitable happened. Fair enough. Time to take a little break from the Black Zone chaos. Time to set up my own pasture, since my farming level was finally high enough to keep my own animals. The chicks were pretty expensive, but I figured I'd make the money back while spending my daily focus on them. And at this point I decided that this was going to be my main focus sink. The only thing I really wanted to do now was breed my own ox. Because come on, how cool is that? Breeding an animal that someone else is probably going to ride for hours. Or stash away in a bank and forget about it and log out forever. Anyway, let's just change the goal a bit. I was doing quite well, but I still had some goals left to check off my list. I still needed to hit 1200 IP, get the Raven, stack up 1,000,000 gold, and of course, become a PvP god. Let's start with the last one. I haven't really dabbed into PvP because, yeah, I was kinda scared of it. And my only experience so far had been in Black Zones and Avalon. Yeah, not great. However, there's all kinds of PvP in the game. 20 versus 20 Zergs, 5 versus 5s, just duels with other players. However, I decided to dip into something more casual, the PvP arena. And you know what? It was actually really fun. This kinda reminded me of League of Legends, just with more build variety.
What did he say?
I really wasn't amazing at it, I have to admit, but I genuinely enjoyed it and ended up playing quite a few matches. Let's just strike this goal off the list. And after my final arena match, I had just enough points to unlock Morgana's Raven for the monthly challenge, 3 days before it expired, just in the nick of time. I have to admit it was my most sweaty goal, but just look at the Raven. It's magnificent. God, I just hope I don't forget to swap it out before I get into a PvP zone. At this point, I just wanted to get the 1 million silver to check it off the list. And then use the 1 million to get my hands on tier 8 gear to finally break through that 1200 IP ceiling. So I decided to put my tree chopping cheeks to work and grind like there was no tomorrow. After several more hours of grinding and trying my absolute best to not spend a single coin, sold all of my loot and all of the junk that I hoarded in my 40+ hours of gameplay, and also the chickens that I kinda forgot to sell. And boom, I hit 1 million silver, which I immediately blew on some insane tier 8 gear. Except for the weapon, I couldn't afford that. It was freaking expensive. It did push me just above 1200 IP. Goal achieved, barely. By this time I was also an Elder Reaver and a renowned ox breeder. Just look at these cute little things, absolutely adorable. Man, what a journey it was through the world of Albion Online. I managed to complete all of the goals that I set to achieve. So what makes Albion Online stand out from the rest of the MMORPGs? Well, it's grindy, but like RuneScape grindy, the good kind. And everything you do, chopping wood, fighting monsters, raising chickens, it all means something. It feels like it means something. Progress actually feels earned. What really sets it apart is everything is player driven. The gear, the economy, the entire world. It's built, looted or crafted by players. There is real risk reward, especially in PvP zones where one step can cost you everything. You set your own goals, be a trader, a killer, a farmer, a combination of these. And whatever you choose, you're always working towards something. Also, Albion doesn't hold your hand, and that's a good thing. The real downside for me at least was struggling to find a solid PvP dungeon group. My IP probably was just a little bit too low. Maybe I was almost there. You know, 90% of Albion players quit right before they hit the jackpot. Still, for me it was a bit frustrating because that one dungeon that I did was an absolute banger. I really liked it. If you're curious about Albion Online and want to try it out for yourself, there's a link down below with a referral code. Go check it out and see if you enjoyed the grind as much as I did. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, a special thanks goes to my patrons. You guys are amazing. Well, see you guys next time. Bye.